Today, I'm really excited to welcome someone I've known personally and deeply respect, Bear Handlon. Bear's story is wild in the best way. He went from playing linebacker at Yale to serving our country as a Navy officer in the SEAL teams. While in the military, he simultaneously was building what has become one of the most respected performance and lifestyle and outdoor brands out there, Born Primitive, a full-fledged brand that combines performance apparel, athleisure, outdoor gear, tactical apparel, and a powerful mission-driven identity. Bear's not just about building a business, he's about building impact. His brand strongly supports veterans, first responders, and athletes of all levels, and using apparel as a platform for a larger purpose. So today, we're gonna dive deep with Bear. We'll talk about his journey from football fields at Yale to military service to building a business from the ground up, including the twist, hard decisions, life moments, the entrepreneurial grit, and the vision for what comes next. Welcome to the podcast, Bear.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Montana.
There it is. I love it.
What do you think about Montana?
It's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like your rings.
Crisp fall air. Everything's fresh. The people are great. The Western flair is awesome, so I'm all in. Yeah.
It's a pretty cool
Thus
place.
the turquoise rings, right?
I was so excited.
These are sweet. I got to get more of this.
Cool.
I'm going to just go down the rabbit hole of getting all this wild turquoise now, I have a feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, like bracelets.
Yeah, well, my dad has rocked turquoise forever, and we always would kind of make fun of him for it, but now I'm like, actually, that was sweet the whole time.
Dad, I actually finally understand why you've been into turquoise. Now you're in your dad era.
That's right.
That's amazing. Well, we're really happy you're here. In Montana, I feel like suits you pretty well, too.
It does. It really does.
Because you're an outdoorsman in your own right. And
would love to get out here someday, or at least it'd be nice to like have a property out here just to get away. It feels right.
Yeah, a little second home action.
That's right. That'd be nice.
That's awesome. I know Virginia Beach is a little different than Montana.
It is.
Well, yeah, I've known Bear, I guess, going on 4 years. Yeah, we become friends, I guess, in Virginia Beach only. And then as I've moved different places, we've stayed in touch, and he's an amazing man, great dad, amazing friend. And if you guys don't know Bear, you're missing out. Hopefully you know him a little bit more at the end of this podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Let's do it.
So I guess just to start from the beginning, you obviously played football at Yale, but what was life before that? What did it look like? You were in Indiana?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty standard Midwest upbringing. I'm the youngest of, there's three of us, three brothers, so I'm the youngest of the three. Sports growing up, typical Midwest, patriotic values, like middle America, flyover states, right? And sports was like a very big deal growing up. And then for whatever reason, academics was big too. Like me and my brothers did, really focused on that. So had the opportunity to play football in college and, go to a good school like Yale, which was a neat opportunity. Figured that would, kind of hopefully open some doors for me later in life. And I actually wanted to enlist in the Navy after high school, but my parents convinced me because I was getting recruited for football. Like, hey, why don't you go get a degree and go play football, and then if you want to still do that, you can do it after you graduate. So, in hindsight, that was probably good advice. So that's what I did. And then I graduated. I went and worked for Red Bull for a few years, and then ultimately, I couldn't kick the military thing. It was keeping me up at night, and there was a lot of family pressure to not do it. And I was married at the time to Mallory, who was the co-founder of Born Primitive, and had to kind of give her an ultimatum of hey, I got to go do this thing, or I'm gonna regret it the rest of my life. So I gave her a 24-hour ultimatum and said, take 24 hours, give me a hard yes or no, and let's roll out on that. And fortunately, she was like, all right, let's do this. And so ended up getting into the SEAL program and going out to SEAL training after I got commissioned, and then had started Born Primitive just a few months before all of that started. The military career. So yeah, it was a lot, and it's looking back, it's like snap of the fingers. It's come and gone, but yeah, a lot of cool experiences from all that.
That's amazing. Did you fit in at Yale, you think?
Oh, no, not at all. Well, it's funny because I remember I had Walmart used to sell work boots. I don't know if the brand is Brahma. Do you remember? These are $15 work boots from Walmart. And so my buddy Booter, we'd always rock the Brahma Bull. We called them the Brahma Bulls. So I was rocking the Brahmas with a Bass Pro hat that had a fish hook attached to it. And then I had a Carhartt jacket jacket and flannel lined jeans. I remember my mom got me flannel lined jeans for like the winter, like walking on campus.
Yeah.
So like I was that guy in walking in a classroom with, you know, a bunch of like very academic, like
Ivy Leaguers,
nerdy look, you know, and I'm, you know, by my sophomore year, I was like 235 pounds. So, you know what I mean? I like grew my hair out a little bit, you know what I mean? Then you have these like skinny little like Ivy League kids that are $150 soaking wet. So, you know, we, you know, especially on the football team, like we don't not blend in very well. Like you can see us a mile away. So, you know, not only was it the Midwest thing making me stand up, but then the fact that I was like a collegiate athlete and just built like a beefcake, you know what I mean? So like, yes, no, I did not blend in. And then my personal beliefs did not blend in very well either. If you can imagine what it's like being on an Ivy League campus, there was some wild stuff that, you know, I was just like, holy crap, this is like, man, y'all are like way on the other side of things. Like not even close. So yeah, that was an interesting experience. But you know, learned a lot from it, and it really actually reaffirmed my beliefs even stronger. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people said, oh, if you send your kid to these like crazy universities, do you think it like could corrupt them? I think some definitely could, but for me it did the opposite. I was just like, wow, y'all are nuts. And like I am so good with where I'm at, like, you know what I mean, and I'm still that way, you know what I mean? So but yeah, that was a different way of doing business over there.
Yeah, I can only imagine, even just being straight out of Indiana, like cornfields, like America, and apple pie, being like, oh, this is wild. That's so cool. Okay, so talk a little bit, if it's okay, about your time in the teams, and I'd love to hear whatever stories you're able to share, but I think it'd be cool to hear about your Buds experience a little bit, and maybe a moment in Buds that you're like, did I make the right call? Did you ever have that kind of moment?
I think I definitely like never doubted my decision, but there was definitely like some fear in there. You know, I think like maybe my biggest like, oh shit moment was actually like right before we started, like 10 minutes prior. So the first, your first evolution starts like 4 a.m. on a Monday morning. Like it's in the same evolution, I think, for like literally like 30 or 40 years. And you line up on the duck feet on the grinder, and like you wait for the instructors to come out, and like, you know, it's this game on day one. And we had a couple of guys that had tried to go through Buds before that didn't make it, got sent to the fleet, had come back to try it again. So for 2 to 3 weeks, they were like telling us like how bad the fleet was and how like you can't quit because it's like way worse if you don't make it, blah, blah, blah. So like you're hearing all this. And then literally right before we started, those guys fell out of formation and went and rang out before it even started. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, what do these guys know that I don't? You know what I mean? Like, what did I just sign up for, right? And it was the most unnerving thing, because you're standing there, you know, you've been thinking about this moment for me since 8th grade, and I'm finally like standing on the duck feet about to like, all right, we're finally going to figure out if I can hack it or not. You know what I mean? Because you never really know. You know what I mean? Like you think you're like, all right, like I'm pretty sure there's no way I'm going to quit this, but like, what if like, you know what I mean? What if I get compromised mentally and like, then I have a weak moment? So you're still not sure. And so that was, I think, my most unnerving moment. It was like just right before it starts, you know, 3:50 in the morning, and you're like, okay, here we go. You're finally here. And then those guys quit before it even starts. And I remember an instructor opened up the door and he's like, are you kidding me? And then he slammed the door again. And we're like, oh, now they're mad. Like, and then they all come out of the door and it's just game on, you know what I mean? So, but that, you know, it was a good experience. You know, they trim the fat real quick. It's a really good system. It's kind of chaos, but it's super fair, it's super organized, and it's very like deliberate in the schedule. But you know, I think we rolled in, we had 215 or 220 dudes to start, and day one, and you know, by Wednesday night of Hell Week, which is just, you know, 4 weeks in, we were down to 19, and then we graduated 11 originals. So like the system worked.
You had 11 in your class.
11 originals, and I think I used every silver bullet I had, because there were so many chances like I could have been rolled to a previous class, and I would just kind of squeak by barely. Like it was like a cat with 9 lives. I'd get like to the final retest and like pass, you know what I mean? But so I did not go through like unscathed, but I was able to, you know, be one of the 11 originals, and it was, I mean, super intense, obviously, and it makes you realize like how much further you really can go, because they take you to that line, and you maybe put your toe across it a little bit, and you're like, oh, that's the line. Okay, got it. I thought the line was like 80 yards back, but like we can go way further, and that's helpful, you know, for other things in life, because, you know, when things get really hard, I can always be like, all right, well, I know I have like 5 more gears that most people haven't had to ever use, that like if I have to, you know what I mean? Like if I have to get 0 hours of sleep and go back to work, like I know I can do that now, you know what I mean? So hopefully you don't have to, but it's at least now, you know, it's good now knowing, you know, how far you can go and keep rocking. So
That you could.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of friends that you were close with in Buds Quit?
Not really.
Did you kind of keep your head down?
Every one of my roommates quit.
Really?
I was getting new roommates every day.
Oh. So you like, at some point were you like, okay, I'm not even going to try?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't care. I mean, it was literally so, I mean, literally not a single roommate made it. And then now after Hell Week, then like, you know what I mean? Like you're good. But beforehand, I mean, we were going through roommates, like it was going out of style. Yeah, there was 4 of us to a room.
Dang.
And almost every couple nights you'd have 3 new dudes in your room. You know what I mean? They have to keep reshuffling guys around. So it was absurd. And then I remember like right before Hell Week, our like final crew of 4 was like, all right, like we all better frickin' be here on Friday afternoon. Like no one's frickin' quitting. All 3 of them quit.
Were you the pep talk guy?
Kinda, a little bit.
I can see
that.
that.
A little bit. But yeah, none of those guys made it. And then I remember they had to like send someone to my room to like sleep in my room with me, because I was like alone, and you're not supposed to like sleep alone after Hell Week because you're all jacked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. You don't get close to anyone until afterwards. But I think the craziest thing is like the guys that show up are super motivated already and super squared away. And like, you know, we had a UFC middleweight that quit almost immediately, and we got, you know, Olympians and Division I wrestlers, and like the caliber there is like pretty intense, you know, pretty extreme. So it's a little unnerving on day one. You're like, okay, like statistically 80% of these people are gonna be gone in 3 weeks. Like that's, you know what I mean? So you're looking around, you're like, I don't know where the fat's gonna be. And then you're like, well shit, maybe I'm the fat, you know what I mean? But then you see the system work, and it does its thing. And it doesn't matter if you have an 8-pack, it doesn't matter if you were a Division I wrestler, like when it's 2 in the morning and you're hypothermic in the 55-degree Pacific Ocean and you haven't slept in a few days, like that's the great equalizer. And your physical attributes at that point don't matter, and your reasons for being there now are the only thing that matters, right? And I think a lot of guys thought they were there for the right reasons, when really they were probably more surface level reasons, even if they didn't realize it was. And that gets brought to the surface real quick. And that off ramp gets real easy to take.
Sure, because it's like a shallow reason, or like you're saying, superficial of like, I want to be cool, I want to be Navy SEAL.
Yeah, which I don't blame. I mean, you know, young men, like of course it's cool, you know what I mean? But it's like, no, do you actually want to do the job though? That's the reason that can make you make it. Like, do you know what the job will be in a perfect scenario? You know what I mean? And though I think it needs to be a little deeper than just like, oh, it would be cool for like girls to think I'm cool. You know what I mean? Or whatever all the silly reasons might be for maybe a 22-year-old man to come up with. You know what I mean? Which we're idiots when we're 22, so it's fair.
Well, what was your why? Because obviously it was more in depth than just that.
Well, for me, I was in 8th grade when 9/11 happened, and that like planted the seed. I remember we went home from school that day because they sent us home, and there was like a newspaper that was delivered like that afternoon. It was like a special edition, like afternoon delivery, and it was the 9/11 towers, you know. And I cut that newspaper out, clipping out, and I put it above my desk, and it's been with me ever since. It went with me to Yale. It was in my locker going through Buds. Yeah, I still have it. And I was super fired up, you know. I was like, you know, eventually I want to, you know, be a part of the response to this. And that's ultimately like when I, you know, graduated, even though there was a lot of pressure from my family to not go, I was like, it just didn't sit right with me. You know, I was like 25 years old, super fit. I'd been a Division I athlete. I've been around sports and human performance my whole life. And here I am like watching college football on a Saturday afternoon in air conditioning, eating wings and drinking a beer. And like there's a kid who's 20, you know, in Iraq right now, like sleeping in a freaking trench. Like, no way. You know what I mean? So that's why I was like, I got to do this.
Yeah, that perspective.
So for me, it was like the patriotic side, but also then like particularly, you know, specific to the SEAL teams that, you know, I had heard that it was the hardest and the most elite. So I was like, well, that's what I want to try then. You know what I mean? I was drawn to the challenge. And I think as a man, you just kind of want to see if you can hack it. You know what I mean? And you want to see where that line is. So I think I was drawn to drawn to that, for better or worse.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Not easy being married in that line of work. So that ended up, I ended up becoming a statistic in that realm, but, sometimes you gotta make hard decisions and see kind of how things play out. But I knew going into that, okay, I don't know what the stats are now, some 80 to 90%,
Sure.
which is a horrible stat. That's not great. It's not a good look for the boys, but,
It's not.
yeah.
It's not a good look for the boys at all.
No, so.
Oh, man. Okay, so if you're okay with it, obviously share whatever you're comfortable with. You kind of hit on your divorce a little bit.
Yeah.
What, in that season of life, if you can look back, remember how you're feeling, what was the hardest moment there, and what did you take away from that, and what would you say to someone maybe that's walking through a divorce right now that is confused or wondering what to do or how they're going to bounce back?
Yeah, well, I think a little bit of context is important. So Mal and I started Born Primitive together right before I joined the Navy. So not only did I go do this wild thing that was going to keep me away from home all the time, she was a dental hygienist at the time, and I had kind of created this little mini business, that was Born Primitive, that we didn't know was going to turn into this behemoth. But by default, she had to kind of start helping with the business. And eventually, when we went out to California, her license didn't transfer because she hadn't been a hygienist long enough. So she didn't have a choice. So she just went all in on Born Primitive. But I had uprooted her from her friends and her family in Indiana, and my family was Indiana too, right? And now you drop her into California. The thing she had just gone to school for and got certified and done all this stuff doesn't work anymore. And she had to jump through hoops and do all you know what I mean? You know how California is. Pay a bunch of money and all this. And then there's no friend group because all the wives or girlfriends, they're all gone immediately because no one makes it. So, you know what I mean? She'd get friends with a girl and then her husband quits the next day. So, she's isolated. I'm at work all day. You could see how that would be hard for any spouse to go through. But also then once I got into a platoon, her and I were running Born Primitive. It was just the two of us for 4 to 5 years. So every hour that I wasn't doing my active duty job, her and I were running the business. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to be husband and wife because we're both also super type A and competitive. So it was we both were okay with working because that's just what we both wanted to do because it was necessary to try to make the business successful. But eventually that'll take its toll. You know what I mean? The check engine light eventually is going to come on and as much as I tried, it's on the deployment years, you're gone 300 days out of the year. People need, physical, you being present and quality time and all the things. So, kind of just, it took the toll, and it's one of those things you have the positive side of, hey, I got to go do something that I really wanted to do that probably opened up a lot of doors for me, and will in the future for my life, but also, allow me to join a fraternity of men that is a really tight-knit, you know what I mean? There's so many positive things that I learned, leadership, that I can, hopefully pass down to my daughter. But then, there was some collateral damage of, okay, well, you did go through a divorce. Mm-hmm. And I would say, anyone that's actually going through a divorce, and it's fine, it's happening, try to work together, and get through it without lawyers and stuff. Because that just turns into an absolute nightmare. You both are going to just spend tens of thousands, if not six figures, on attorneys. They will put you against each other. You know what I mean? Because and so I got lucky that Mal and I literally just went into a lawyer and wrote it up and was hey, just write this into an agreement. And I remember the lady was pulled Mal aside and was hey, you can get more from this guy. And she was no, write it up. You know what I mean? Which was awesome.
Good for her.
You know what I mean? But then there's the opposite where and I'm sure obviously it can happen to both sexes where the lawyer's no, you need to ask for another $100,000 and, he needs to do this, and this. And, you know what I mean? There's just ridiculously unreasonable, demands. And then you end up going to court and you both end up paying $80,000 in legal fees. And then you hate each other at the end. And no one wins. And you just had chronic stress for 18 months of your life. You know what I mean? How's that sound? You know what I mean? When you can literally be all right, we weren't, hopefully, hey, I know we're not, it's not going to work out, but let's just put our heads together and just come up with something reasonable and be reasonable. Don't believe that person that's oh, I need $5 million or I'm going to, no, you don't. Stop. You know what I mean? Particularly if the other person earned it, stop with that shit.
Yeah.
I got some friends right now that are going through it. I'm just that have tried to just say, hey, I'm going to give you a giant lump sum of money and we're going to move on, and it's like a middle finger, and then they're like, okay, well, I guess, and then depositions and all. So I would say that would be the one thing, is like try to work together, because it will get nasty. Yeah.
Did that time teach you anything about yourself?
Obviously, it was a very difficult transition for me, because I never thought it would come to that. Like, and maybe there was a little arrogance there of like, okay, I can still go do this career and like we can stay married. I just thought that was the case, and maybe I was a bit overconfident. And I think the biggest regret is that maybe we should have toned down the Born Primitive stuff a little bit, you know what I mean, and try to like spend more deliberate time, because, for example, like we did a vacation in Hawaii before my first deployment, pre-deployment leave, and we're so type A, we would get up at 4 a.m. and work till noon every day, because that was the East Coast hours of 9 to 5. Wow. So we could still like work a normal, like, so I'm on leave. I'm about to deploy for 6 to 7 months, and like that was automatic, right? Because I remember there was like a Starbucks that would open at 6 a.m. So we'd work in like the little condo from 4 to 6, and then we'd run over to the Starbucks, get a coffee, get some, the little egg bites, and then at noon we'd leave the Starbucks and be like, okay, let's go get lunch and like start our vacation day. But then we're going to bed at like 7:30 at night, because it's like, hey, we're up at 3:40. You know what I mean? But that was the normal thing. Whereas like in hindsight, I'm like, all right, maybe both of us should have been more aware of like, man, why don't we just like go catch the sunrise like a normal, you know what I mean, or whatever, or go get some mimosas and a brunch and maybe have a little too much to drink, whatever. But the other side of that is, I don't think Born Primitive would have became what it became if we didn't have that. It's like, all right, do you want to be exceptional, or do you want to be average? And the path to becoming exceptional is probably going to be kind of a lonely one. You're going to be misunderstood. So it's like, take your pick, man. I don't know the answer to that, but that's just the path we took, and there's good and bad to both. So
I think that's good advice for people that maybe are, I don't know, both really hardworking people, that like them hearing you say that, of being like, yeah, if I maybe had been more intentional, or like that's one thing that you wish you could have done. So like that's a great piece of advice, especially for men who, like you, are so geared. I guess not all men, but some men are geared to work so hard to protect and provide. So I think that's a great piece of advice.
Thank you.
And like maybe a hard-earned lesson that like sucked learning it, but really cool that you're able to take that away.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay, I feel like I bopped around because I was like just flowing with what we were talking about.
Oh, you're good.
So let's talk about BP a little bit. You guys are very different than other brands for a lot of reasons, but I think the main thing that I really respect is you stand behind what you believe. You don't back away in fear of cancel culture, and you're very like, yeah, this is what we're about. Even thinking about the flags you put up in different firehouses.
Yeah,
I like to hear that story, and I'd also like to hear like how you guys kind of. I'm sure it was automatic, like you said, you and Mal are both on the same page of like, we are who we are. So it's probably never questioned. But was there ever a time that you guys had a meeting where you were like, where's the line?
Yeah, there definitely was. I mean, we've always wanted to stand for our personal beliefs. You know what I mean? Like a good brand should have almost like a personality, as if it were a person, right? So if you say, oh, what's that brand like? You could almost describe it as if it was a human. Well, we're not creative enough to come up with some fictitious brand. Like Born Primitive is just us portrayed through a brand. You know what I mean? Like I'm not original enough to be like, oh, let's create this like unique personality that we're just gonna like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Our values are shown through the brand. So from day one, that was just kind of like almost implied, like this is how we're gonna be. And she definitely kind of let me lead as far as like any like public messaging and things like that. She was like, hey, I trust you. Like she was kind of running the operations on the back end, but she was like, any of that brand stuff, like it's all you. And like I support it because she had the same values, right? But I mean, over time I started to learn that like that's actually exactly what you should be doing, because like if you're trying to speak to everyone, you're speaking to no one.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like especially in like the marketing world, like pick a lane and run in it, right? Like all these like diluted brands that try to be like for everyone. It's like, no, you're actually, especially as a new brand trying to break into a space. You know what I mean? Like the established brands probably, yeah, like if you're Apple, yeah, you're fine. But if you're like, hey, I'm gonna start a t-shirt company and I want to be original, okay, if it's this vanilla, like no one's gonna notice you. So, I don't think we realized we were doing that at first, but as we did it more, I was paying attention to why customers were coming to us. Like when we would go to CrossFit events and set up a booth, and people would come up like, hey, I love the fact that you guys openly support law enforcement. My husband's a law enforcement officer, and like, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, cool. And then, but when you hear that for the 100th time, you're like, oh, wow, that's actually a reason people are stoked on us, when we just thought that was just our value. So like, let's just, you know what I mean? It wasn't really a strategy. And then things did get a little crazy during the whole like cancel culture, BLM, like all the crazy shit that our society was going through. We had always supported law enforcement, and we had a Thin Blue Line collection that we donated a significant amount of proceeds to a charity that supported like the families of fallen officers. So I would like to think that's a fairly bipartisan thing. Like if a cop dies and like we're helping the kid go to like a camp for grief with other kids that have lost a father, and in the line of, like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that regardless of the side of the aisle you're on, you should be like, okay, that's actually like, that kid, deserves to be able to have that support. So we were supporting organizations like that through our Thin Blue Line collection. And when all like the BLM anti-police stuff started popping off, like I was getting like hate mail. And people were trying to hold us hostage.
What were they saying?
They were saying like, well, somehow, all of a sudden now we're racist. You know what I mean? That was and you're a bigot. I mean, all the BS punchlines that they gaslight you with, we were getting, and I was getting personal messages. Wow. Which when it's just
on Instagram or email?
Yeah, mostly Instagram. I'm active duty at the time, so like literally I'm reading these messages like in between like skydive jumps, you know what I mean? Like I'd go back to my phone because we'd have 5 minutes, so we got to put our next shoot on, and I'd see some snowflake from New York DMing me like, oh, literally there was a guy from New York who owns like one of the biggest CrossFit gyms in New York, and he was like, if you don't like denounce XYZ and take down all of your Blue Line apparel, like I'm banning anyone from wearing Born Primitive in my gym. And he said you have 24 hours to comply. I'm like, oh, what is this, a hostage negotiation, right? So I
they also don't know who
I kindly told them to, I'll spare the language, but then I remember we had a meet because we were about to launch like another Thin Blue Line collection. We would usually like launch a new collection every year, and we were about to launch it, and I remember we like just had a call meeting, like, because when it was just Mal and I, it was so easy to just be who we were. But when you have like 30 or 40 employees, you actually think about it a little bit more, because you're like, okay, I know how I roll, but like I also, if this like countercultural phenomenon is so powerful that I'm actually in the, like, not, I want to say in the wrong, but like I'm in the minority of thought, and this starts to really affect our business. Like, is there a way to still be who we are, but not like kind of tone it down a little bit? And fortunately, we thought of that for all of 2 minutes, and then just no, this is who we are. If anyone has a problem with us supporting law enforcement, they're not our customer, and we're going to make that really easy for them to see in 2 seconds on our site. You know what I mean? Wow. And from that point forward, we've rolled like that, and I've had to kind of with Mal, I tell her, hey, like, the seas are going to get rough at times, and we're going to, like, these people are going to, and they're going to try to rattle us, but like, we need to, like, trust the plan. We are bringing in more people because of this than like we're losing. And just because these loud people on social media are trying to rattle us, we can't let them get in our heads, and our values are our values, and we can be proud. We can hang our hat on that all day long. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, it was easier said than done there for a minute, because once people are depending on you, and like your, payroll and all these things, like there's more to it than just your own little side hustle that you had. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love that answer. So I feel like in your lifetime, not just in your career in the military or even before that, but also especially at Born Primitive, with a bunch of different challenges, personal and maybe also business-wise, how have you handled the times that people have either accused you of different things that are wrong, and this could, again, be like personal or business, and how do you, like, where do you ground yourself to know, like, this is who I am as a man, this is what I'm about? I know you're a great dad. That probably helps, having written there too. A good reminder of like, look at the sweet girl that you created kind of deal. But yeah, I guess my question is, how do you ground yourself in like what is at your core, like your core beliefs about who you are and what you've been made to do?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, especially on the business side, is you got to run your own race. You know what I mean? And like, you can't let other people influence how you, do what you feel is appropriate, specifically for Born Primitive, just the brand values. Like, we got to stay true to who we are. And I think, while I haven't mastered this yet, I've gotten much better at not being worried of what other people think. And even like think on a personal level, like I think people are afraid of like, oh, like what if that person doesn't like me, or whatever. It's like the amount of time you're going to live in that person's head is so slim regardless, because everyone has their own shit. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like you overemphasize what you'll actually live in their head with. You know what I mean? And I think I've gotten better at that, of not feeling like I have to like please everyone and give everyone access to me. And I'm willing to say no to things because, you know what I mean? Whereas before, I think I've always been a bit of a people pleaser. But when you're running a business and you have to like kind of make executive decisions, like those two don't work well together, right? Because you end up then overextending yourself and you take too many meetings and everyone wants to take a 30-minute call with you and all these things that when you're a people pleaser, oh yeah, let's do it. And you know you don't have time, and you know you're going to take all these calls, and then that night you're going to have to actually do your own work. And so now you've sacrificed, you know what I mean? And so you eventually like, no, I'm not taking that 30-minute call. This person's probably going to think I'm an asshole for not doing it, but they have no idea that I have a million other things that I'm managing, and I'm just gonna politely say no. And if then they go, to their coffee shop and tell their, coworker that, oh, he didn't, then I won't live in their head as much as I think I will. So just like run your race, and obviously don't be mean or disrespectful to people, but at the same time, it's okay to assert yourself and be who you are. You know what I mean? So again, it's some days it's easier said than done. Like I think it's still a work in progress, because I still do like go back to those old ways of like where I know I'm like, okay, I'm totally just accommodating this person, and there's no business intent. Now, obviously, in your personal life, it's a little different because the calculus is different, because like time is like in the business day, time is very finite and very scarce. So you have to really maximize it. But in your personal life, obviously, you have agency in choosing like when to give someone your time. And if you're helping with something, you're helping a buddy move or whatever, like that's different. That doesn't mean, oh, I can't do those things. But in a business sense, you have to be really disciplined with it. Otherwise, you just get nothing done.
Do people still call you to help them move?
No, that's probably a bad example. Yeah,
I was like, wait a minute.
I've seen the meme, like, hey man, we're like in our 30s now, like, the beer and pizza like is not gonna like get me like out of bed to like come have you move for 10 hours. Like
Literally.
Just hire the movers.
Just go ahead and pay them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, go pay someone.
Thanks for the large Dominoes in a Coors banquet. I've just been moving all day. Although
so funny.
Banquet would be solid.
Honestly, yeah, the banquet might be the pushing.
Give me a 12-pack of banquet. Maybe we're in the ballpark.
Lime.
Yeah, well, apparently with a lime now. Yeah,
it's better with the lime. That's so good. Yeah, I think something that I've learned, maybe even from you, or like just being your friend, seeing how you do business, seeing how you run your company, even from like a very far outsider view, is like you kind of let your actions speak for you, and you're not always explaining yourself to people, and you don't feel the need. And maybe it is like letting that people pleasing thing die. But that's something I've like kind of watched and noticed, and I'm like, that's great. Like I don't want to have to ever over-explain myself. And I think I kind of do it to a fault sometimes. Yeah. Where I'm like, well, that's not true about me, but I'm just going to stand over here and let that person dig themselves in a hole, or like let the truth surface on its own. Sometimes it is good to stand up for ourselves, but I think it's also really nice when like you get justified, or like people realize over time anything people have said about you like isn't true, if it's not true at least. Yeah, and I think the other thing is like just control what you can control, right? And that's true in so many ways. And I think this is where I think weaving in like faith in God comes into play of like, there is a bigger plan, you know what I mean? So like, don't try to hold on so tight to everything that you think you can, because you're not in control at the end of the day. That's right. You know what I mean? You can control aspects of your life, and you can be well organized, and you can, be healthy, and like you can control those things, but the bigger plan, you're not calling the shots. So the ability to submit to that plan, and I'm still working on that. Like I'm not there yet. And like, that's why, going to church on Sundays and like praying and stuff, like that's like the thing I'm really trying to get to, because I'm not there yet, but I the wheels are turning of saying, okay, there's a bigger plan. Yeah. And if you could cross that line of being able to like fully submit, and I think that's where true faith comes in, you know what I mean? Then you're free, you know what I mean? And you don't have that burden of like having to hold on so tight to everything, because I do think I get a good amount of anxiety and fear of the unknown, of like, oh, what if? And part of it is because I am in the crosshairs now. We've had 3 lawsuits just this year that are completely bogus, and then now you're to the point where
you have a target on your back. People see dollar signs. They see opportunity, especially with the victim mindset that has infected our society. Everyone thinks that if they're fired, they were wrongfully fired, that, even though they were a terrible employee and they didn't show up to work on time. All these things are so obvious. Our world, it's like, oh no, I could do no wrong. Like, it had to be because I'm a girl or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, like, look at the notes. Like, you got fired by a girl. The business is owned by a girl. You know what I mean? Like, 80% of this company is women. Like, no, you know what I mean? Like, these stupid examples, but like, people are now, like, it's the first thing they think of. So that gives me a lot of anxiety, because like, you just get one of those to catch, and like, now you have a $20 million lawsuit, and now you're labeled as like and this isn't a real example. I mean, these are just the things that can happen. And then, the other 3 lawsuits were like, these bogus lawsuits that these law firms do to all companies like us now. Like 2 of them are ADA claims. So like, if someone's blind, that it can't see your site because they have like a special software they use, like if one page is wrong or like slightly off, these law firms will comb your site with a software, and then they find blind people, and they will submit like 500 lawsuits on behalf of that one person, and they'll just mass copy and paste the lawsuit to like 500 companies that have like online websites, and then they give the plaintiff, like the one blind guy, a cut of the settlement. And then that's all they do. It's a giant racket. It's a shakedown. We've had 3 of those this year. So like maybe my web developer creates like a new web, like we have like hundreds of web pages on the site, and one of them they miss like one little period that like doesn't match the blind software. It's like, now they got you. This guy was claiming PTSD, night terrors, because he couldn't buy a tank top. Right? These are the things now that you as
You're
the
kidding.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. So you're having a normal day. You're having a normal day, and then you get this FedEx envelope, and you open it up, and it says, plaintiff and defendant, and you start reading it, and you're reading about a guy in Illinois that is getting night terrors because he couldn't buy a tank top from your site, and they need $50,000
for his night terrors.
For his night terrors, right?
Oh.
And especially coming from the military, you know what I mean? You got to be kidding me. But these are the things that heavy is the crown, right? Everyone, and that's why I told Mal like recently. I said, hey, we got to batten down the hatches, but we also need to know this is now normal. We have gotten big enough that this is going to be every year. We're going to be dealing with these knuckleheads. So thicken the walls, add more archers to the towers, make the moat wider, because they're coming. But hey, when it's time to fight, like, I'll be the one that leaves the walls and goes and fight it. You keep running the business, but like, just know this is coming, and we need to plan for it. And when it comes, we can't emotionally react, but we do have to defend our company. And that's why, like, with our hiring practices and all the things, like, we're super dialed. I'm proud to say that, like, our employee makeup is like just awesome. We're very well represented, and it's a true merit-based hiring. I don't give a shit what gender you are, what your skin color is, your sexual, none of that matters. Hey, if you can contribute to this organization, you have a place here. And hey, if you can't hack it though, regardless of who you are, you're out of here. You know what I mean? And as long as you're doing it within the parameters that's fair and within the guidelines, then hey, if they want to find some attorney who thinks he can take a shot at us and try to shake us down for $2 million, then bring it on, man. Dang. You know what I mean? So
that is insane.
Yeah, it'll happen. I bet in the next 2 years I'll have one of those. It's going to happen. But and you talk to any company, like they're dealing with it all the time, right?
That reminds me of the stuff that we were talking about. The Diesel brothers.
Yeah.
Like
same idea. Same idea.
Calling out the industry.
Giant target on their back, right? So I get it. Yeah.
That's crazy. I went and watched one of his videos because I was curious, like, what was happening, and it was like you were saying, people make a business out of suing people just for the money. It's all it is.
Yep.
Yeah. Insane.
Yep.
I didn't really know that existed.
Me neither, until I was like, what is the ADA, American Disabilities Act? And then, and I read into it, and I'm like, of course, obviously, like, I want someone that's blind to be able to, like, come to the site and have a good shopping experience. But, like, hey, if we missed one page and you can't buy a tank top, email us.
Yeah.
And we'll go, oh, my bad. Like, we didn't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't, like, but what these law firms go find the blind people, and they say, hey, we'd like to file 500 lawsuits on your behalf, and hey, we're going to give you, for every one we settle, we're going to give you $2,000. We're going to do 500.
I wonder how they find these people.
Yeah, I mean, there's way more to the story. I've learned about it because then, like, the lawyer that represents us, they know how it works. You know, it's not even worth going into detail, but it is a giant racket. And if you look up the plaintiff for our case, he's in like 500 other cases, right? And he's claiming night terrorists for all of them. Like, these are the turds that we have in our society that will, you know, play victim, and you know what I mean. It has nothing to do with his disability.
No, zero.
He's taking advantage of a system. And it was probably a well-intended system, right? I don't even know the specifics of the American Disability Act, but imagine, like, okay, there's probably a lot of really good stuff in there, right? But once again, it can be weaponized. Long way of saying, that leads to you kind of always being on edge and having anxiety of, like, what's around door number 3. But if you can figure, if the faith thing, you know what I mean? Okay, it's going to work out how it's going to be. So just go with the flow, control what you can control to an extent, but the rest, just let it be.
Yeah, I feel like I've never skydived, but you were talking about that earlier. I've never skydived, but you were kind of mentioning being in, I don't know, you said Arizona or something, skydiving?
Yeah, that's probably where we were.
Yeah, at Jump. And, but what you're saying about faith and just trusting, I feel like it probably feels similar to, like, falling out of this plane. Really, like, you're in control of pulling your shoe.
Yeah.
But really not much else.
Yeah.
You're not in control of really anything else as soon as you step foot off that plane and your second foot goes off and you're in the air. Like, I'm sure, obviously, like, I love the Lord and I have a really strong faith. And sometimes it does feel like you're literally just jumping off this big building and you're like, I really hope that this chute catches me because I'm not in control here and I don't know what's next. Don't know if I'm going to hit a bird. Like, I don't know. Have there been moments in the last few years that you've, like, looked back and seen God really had your back, and, like, maybe faith building or trust building moments with the Lord that you're like, oh, I had no idea what was going to happen here. Obviously, don't go into super detail about anything you don't want to, but have there been places or moments, markers, I guess, in your life?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think one good example is just having my daughter, right? Because, I wasn't married at the time, and that was not an expected thing. So, as a young man to get that news, like, that's pretty scary stuff, you know what I mean? And I just remember, I think I turned white as a ghost, you know what I mean? And I'm just, like, kind of panicking. You remember, like, Forrest Gump when he panicked when, like, and Jenny told him that he was the dad and he, like, thought he had done something wrong? I think that was probably about how I reacted, right? And you think, okay, now my life is going to change, and you're thinking of, like, and I regret that I had these thoughts, but this is in the first 30 seconds. You're processing it, like, super fast. Is like, now, like, my ability to kind of pursue my career might be throttled, and what is my future in the SEAL team's gonna look like? Like, and then am I gonna have my own freedoms anymore? You know what I mean? But wow, the perspective you have, once you have a child and you become a father, and and then that crazy bond that you can never even put into words, you realize, hey, like, wow, like, that played out, in better than I could have ever imagined. So, again, it goes back to just having faith in what's going to happen. And then I think there's times in life where you hit real hardship. And I think the challenge is in those moments, you're saying, hey, what's the lesson here? Because I am struggling. And like, you start to question faith a little bit of, like, why am I having to go through this? And, like, I'm trying to see the lesson here, but I'm really having a hard time. And I think that's when you really got to lean into faith, right? And that's when you need it the most, right? And I think that was probably my biggest lesson from the last few years that's why I really, I started going to church all the time. Like, every Sunday, it's like a non-negotiable, and, read, like, a daily devotional and things like that. Like, faith has gotten much bigger in my life in, like, the last 3 to 4 years. But part of it is because I was desperate. I needed something to help, you know what I mean? And through those hard moments. So I'd say that's now a silver lining from that experience, is, like, your one perspective is great. Sometimes we pay a heavy price for perspective, because you usually have to go through something tough to come out on the other end with the new perspective. Otherwise, you'll never get it. Like, if life is good all the time, like, you're never going to get that. Like, oh wow, I went through that, but now I know this and this, and I see it differently. But I would say that was one kind of cool thing that came from a little bit of hardship that I was going through. Is, like, it really reinvigorated my faith. And I was always, like, I always believed in God, but it was never a big part of my life. You know what I mean? Like, I would pray before football games, and some stuff in the SEAL team, you know what I mean? I would do like the Our Father and, you know, say a quick prayer, but that was about it.
Yeah.
Like that was the extent of my faith. Like I definitely believed there was a God and a higher power, but like I didn't like really devote a lot of my thought to it. You know what I mean? But then once you you know, get kicked in the nuts a couple times, you start saying, man, I might need to seek some help with the big man, and maybe I should start going to church on Sundays, right?
Yeah.
So anyway.
I love that you you love going to church, because that was one of the best places in Virginia Beach for me too. I love that place. And shout out to Pastor T. What's up?
Yeah, he's the man. I'm always coming in late and sitting in front, blocking everyone's view. Especially when I had the long hair. Yeah. You know, I'm like, oh man, no one can see behind me.
Sorry about it, guys. Sorry.
These big broad shoulders, this lion's mane, and I'm coming in like right before it starts, and no one sits in front. I don't get it. I'm like, that's the best seat. I want to be right in front of the pastor. Yeah.
You're like, I want to hear him.
It's right. I'm
there.
locked in. And it's funny because I was always the dork like that would sit like in the first row of the classroom and like be the one like taking all the notes and asking all the annoying questions. So like it kind of still like
that's still how you learn.
Yeah, exactly. I'm right up front, just ready to go.
That's cool. You're like an upfront learner.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, when you were talking, it reminded me, Paul writes, I think it's in Romans, we can rejoice in our sufferings because suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance produces character, and character produces hope, and our hope will not disappoint.
It's awesome.
And like whenever I'm struggling, I'm like, gosh, it says I'm supposed to rejoice right now. And like, why do I rejoice? It's because that basically it's building your character. It's going back to what you first talked about with your military career. It's like, you probably can look back on buds and be like, that was the hardest thing, but like how much goodness came from that.
Yeah.
And like you said, you have 5 other gears that in normal life you would never kick into, but because of that experience, you now know you can, and you're capable.
Yeah.
And you're strong enough too. And like that suffering at the time, I'm sure you're like in your head every second, like, can I get through tomorrow? Can I get through today, I guess? But that's like what produced perseverance in you, to character, to a different type of hope than we're talking about with faith. But it's really interesting to think about. Yeah, I have to quote that verse to myself quite often.
That's great. That's a really good one.
Yeah. Okay, a couple more questions for you because we are getting near our 1 hour mark. We have about 15 more minutes, and I think 2 questions will probably get it there.
Okay.
But before I get into them, I want to give you a gift.
Okay.
So
what do we got here?
This is from Wild Hair.
Okay.
She's a jeweler in town. Her name's Bridget. She's incredible. This is her little, if I can get the card out.
A jeweler in town. Uh-oh.
She's amazing.
I have a feeling I know where this is going.
Yes. I'll let you open the rest
Oh, man. I already see the end of the bolo. This is a bolo?
Yeah, it's a bolo.
Oh, sweet.
It's a really cool custom made. Like, she found this stone and pieced it together.
Nice.
Can you kind of see the horse face right there?
There we go.
So the horse is like sideways profile.
That is
you kind of see that?
Yeah, I do.
So that's just naturally in the stone.
That's freaking awesome.
Isn't it sick?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank her as well, too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Bridget's
What's the company again?
Wild Hair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
She's amazing.
Right. Thank you so much.
She's a really cool gal.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very appropriate for this Montana.
That's right. That's right. It's very Montanan.
All right. Well, cool.
But awesome. Okay, so I guess my question has to do with kind of like labels for men and women. I wanted to ask you like what you think about women and their roles in society, but I think instead I'm going to veer towards, since you are a man, you can speak to this a little bit better. What do you think is wrong with society today as like what they're telling men to be? And what do you hope to be as a man, as a future husband, and as a dad? What qualities are important to you?
Yeah. I don't know. It seems that the masculine male has been kind of villainized a little bit. Now, it hasn't affected me at all. Like, I think it's kind of hilarious. Like, you're going to tell me that, like, I'm not going to, like, watch football and lift weights and, like, shoot guns and, like, be, you know what I mean? Like, I grew up watching Rocky and Rambo. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I'm immune to any of that. But it seems like some men have kind of drank the Kool-Aid of, oh, I got to, like, tone it down a little bit or this and that. And you just see it, and this is a silly example, but in, like, the action stars like in film in Hollywood and like what the male like hero looks like now versus like what it did in like the 80s and like early 90s. Like, it's almost hilarious because like the guys are kind of scrawny now, and like, you know, like the Stallones and that's just not a thing anymore. And maybe it was a little over the top in the 80s, but like, you know what I mean? It's almost and I just think like as men, we should be able to protect and to provide. You know what I mean? And some might be like, oh, that's so traditional. Like, how dare you say that? It's like, no, I think the role of the man is to protect and provide. Now, I will say, hey, if your significant other, if you're married and your wife wants to go kick ass in business and do all that, like if that's what she wants to do, that's totally fine. But at the same time, if like, whoever I eventually get married to, if they're like, hey, I want to stay at home and raise kids, and I want you to go, make the money, and you know what I mean? I think personally that is the ideal setup, because I think it allows a woman to get in her feminine role, that she's, naturally a nourisher and a caretaker, and that's like what you guys are really good at. Yeah. Like it's so natural and so obvious to see when it's happening. And we're validated by feeling like we're doing our job, we're doing our part. So when we're providing and protecting, that makes us feel good. It gives us purpose, because at the end of the day, that's like purpose is what drives everything for us. And I think in some households, like the roles kind of get flipped. Now, it doesn't mean, I'm not saying that if you're a man now, you get to come home, kick your feet up, and not like. I hate that, because I love cooking, and like, hey, on the weekends, if we're cleaning together, like that, you know what I mean? It's still a team effort, but hey, if he's got to go work from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m., I don't think it's the end of the world if when he comes home, there's a nice meal on the table. I don't think that's controversial to say that, because do you want to sit in on his 3 hours of Zoom meetings and then he runs to the next meeting? Like, he's fighting his battle too, you know what I mean? So like, I think we've gotten a little ridiculous of like, oh, you're to suggest that she should make dinner? How dare you? And it's like, well, hey, I'm gonna fire the grill up on the weekends, and we're gonna get a ribeye going. It doesn't mean like, but hey, like we're working together here, and you know what I mean. So I think personally, kind of that traditional division of labor is awesome. But again, it's like if they want to go do their thing, it's totally fine. But I'm just saying, if someone wanted to have that dynamic, I'd say done. Like, tell me where to sign. I love it. And I just think with men, it's like we need to, just lean back into that role of who we are, and we need to be protectors. You know what I mean? So like, I see too many videos of these people like getting mugged on subways, or just they're bystanders, and people are getting beat up, and like everyone's got their phones out. It's like, where are the alphas at? And this is your chance, man. You see some lady getting harassed on a train, okay, man up. That's on you. Your role is to protect. I don't care if he's bigger than you. You're going to at least go disrupt this. So now the heat's on you, not this poor lady that's got her little kid on the train, you know what I mean, because she can't afford to take an Uber and she's on public transportation. You know what I mean? But then, you saw what happened with Daniel Penny. Yep. You know what I mean? It's like now he becomes this villain, and now you wonder why guys don't, respond. Now, thank God that went in the favor it did, but it's like all of a sudden now, like, they flipped the victim and aggressor script. Right. You know what I mean? Right. So I get fired up when it's like they're trying to clip our nuts. Right. You know what I mean? And it's like, men are men. You know what I mean? And I hope with like the generation that's like in high school right now, and like I hope they don't all just grow up and have absolutely no balls and no backbone. You know what I mean? I always wonder, like, so in World War II, we had 16 million Americans fight. Wow. Over half of them signed up before they were even drafted. Wow. Over 8 million Americans all over the country were like, no, we're going. I wonder if that were to happen again, where there was a global conflict and the fate of humanity was on the line, and we knew, millions of a certain, people were getting exterminated and constant, you know what I mean? And it was like, all right, we have to go now because someone's trying to take over the world. Would we have, would our youth still have that? You know what I mean? Like, how many would sign up? I was with some World War II veterans at Normandy for the 80th. Yeah. And I was talking to my guy, and he was talking how, like, his mother was expecting him to sign up, right? Wow. Like, she was like, if all the kids in the neighborhood are going, like, you go down to the recruiter and sign up. Imagine like a mother doing that, like, today. You know what I mean? Because like, no, I was kind of like blown. I figured the dad would be saying that, mom might, but like, during that time, that was the expectation that, hey, honorable. The men are all going to go fight, and the women are going to hold it down, and they were instrumental in winning the war too. The riveter and I'm recalibrating all these factors, so it was a team effort. But hey, if the fight is going to be done by the men, right? And that's okay. You know what I mean? As it should be. That's our job. Yeah. So I do think about that. Like, man, if things were to pop off, do we have 8 million plus Americans that would say, hey, I'm going before you even have to tell me to go?
The World War III memes were funny though. That was actually really funny. Like the ones that are like, the draft, like what it would look like nowadays, and it's like a bunch of like, not what it looked like then. And it was like guys that just like strictly played video games.
Yeah.
Like, just like lived in the basement without seeing sunlight, and it's like. Yeah. Maybe. Or it's like funny ones of like girls on a tank, and it's like when we get drafted for World War III, and it's like them like hitting like a big curve and like whoopsies. There were some really funny girl ones that like I would send to my friends.
It's all in good fun.
It is interesting to think about in comparison to then.
Yeah.
Man. Oh, it's such a cool experience that you got to have there.
Yeah.
For the D-Day.
Awesome. Yeah. Such a humbling. And that's why I think like as Americans, like you should go to Arlington. You should go to Gettysburg. You should go to Ground Zero, and you should go to Normandy at our cemetery. You know, there's over 10,000 headstones on French soil. You see them as far as the eye can see, right? Because I think it's just a humbling reminder. Right?
What was that feeling walking through there? What was that like for you?
Obviously super humbling. It's a beautiful place, you know, lush green grass. You're on the cliffs, breeze coming off the ocean. It's so quiet because obviously everyone knows like, hey, this is you don't be loud, and it's just it was sacred like space. And then you can see, and then there are some of the headstones. They haven't identified all the remains, and I'm going to butcher what it says, but it gave me goosebumps when I saw it. And it says something like, "Here lies a fallen comrade, known but to God," or something like that, because they don't know his name. So like where the name would be, it says that, and it's not 100% that. I don't think that's the exact quote, but it's worded in a way that's so cool. And you see that, and you know what I mean, and you just walk up and down the line. And some of those guys, the World War II vets we were with, we would go to the headstones of the guys that like they served with, and that was and then they'd start breaking down and crying because they haven't been back since they were 18 years old, and their buddy died next to him, you know what I mean, and now they're seeing his headstone for the first time ever. So it was super moving, and that's why I'm like, as soon as Ren is a little older, I definitely want to take her to all those places, because I want her to at least have an understanding of the sacrifices that were made to give us the freedoms we have today, so we don't take that shit for granted, you know what I mean. And like Gettysburg's another one, 50,000 plus casualties in 3 days, you know what I mean. I mean, there was one of the battlefields that I remember when the tour guide was giving it to me, said like, if you were to look out over this battlefield at the end of it, you couldn't walk across the battlefield and step on any grass because there were bodies everywhere. You know what I mean? Pickett's charge, mile and a half uphill up against the Union. It's just crazy to think like the things that our country has gone through to get us to where we are today. Now, are we perfect? Of course not. But hey, let's at least acknowledge how good we have it, and not forget that stuff.
So good. That's so good, Bear. Thank you for sharing that. Earlier, you were talking about just like different roles and like what your heart's desire for a role might be. And I was thinking about the fact that in like the perfect world of like submission, which is such like a dirty word to a lot of people, the submission part is supposed to come naturally because like as a man protects and provides, he's looking out for his family's best interests first. So he's leading from a place of selflessness. And so submission isn't this like controlling, like I'm going to make all the choices and I'm going to do all of these things. And like you were saying, like when I come home, like I'm going to kick my feet up and you're going to serve me. Like that's not what submission was ever supposed to look like. I think a lot of people have twisted that and made it that way, unfortunately. But like what it's supposed to look like is what you were saying of like having I'm going to protect you and provide for you and like selflessly serve you mentality, which is just like a much different thing than I think a lot of people view it as nowadays. But that was just a thought I had from what you shared.
No, I think it's spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on.
So my final question that I always ask every guest, I kind of prepped you a little bit earlier. And I think in bits and pieces you answered this, but maybe not exactly. If you could go back in time and look Bear in the eyes at any given age, tell him something that you know now, what would you tell yourself and at what age?
That's a tough one. It's hard because like the way I've done things has created some collateral damage in my life, but it also has created some incredible opportunity. It's just one of those things like, do I regret that? Like, do I regret going into the SEAL teams even though it led to a divorce? Like, that's a tough question. You know what I mean? So like, what, I don't know, do I go back and say, hey, don't go join the SEAL teams? Hey, if you can see in 7 years, you're going to, not be married to, you know what I mean? That's a tough one. Because part of it is like, I'm proud of the fact that I wasn't afraid to make mistakes. You know what I mean? Like, especially in my 20s, I played a lot of hands, right? And I think that's hopefully anyone listening that's earlier on in life, particularly before you have kids, like that is the time to take risk and to go for it, right? Because as soon as other humans depend on you, the game changes a little bit and the risk calculus is a little bit different, right? Because it's now you have to be thinking of other people as well. But I was dumb enough to not know any better in my 20s. Like I went for it, you know what I mean? Like I went all in and I took risk and did it, you know, lead to some things that were less than ideal outcomes. Yes, but it also, you know, created some really cool experiences and some things that I really cherish. But I think if I could go back and say one thing, it would be like, hey, make sure you enjoy the ride a little bit more. You know what I mean? Hey, be you. Hyper competitive, put yourself in the arena, win, outwork everyone, get a chip on your shoulder, prove them all wrong. All that's good shit, but hey, make sure you enjoy the ride along the way because it's going to go quicker than you think. You know, the idea of like false summits I've talked about before is like, we have this trap of thinking that like, oh, as soon as I go do that thing, it'll unlock all this happiness and I finally made it. And you get there and it doesn't, you know what I mean? And then you immediately see, oh, it's a false summit. The summit's actually right there. I need to go do that thing. But as soon as I get there, then I'll be happy. And you realize you're just chasing an illusion the whole time.
That's right.
There's always going to be another summit. You know, that can be with career milestones. It can be with personal things. Oh, as soon as I get that G-Wagon, I'll be happy. I've made it. As soon as I move out of this house and get the $1 million house, then I'll be good. I swear I'll be good for life. And it's like, no, you're not. You will normalize that new achievement. And then you're immediately going to say, I need something more. So if you know that's always going to be like that, learn to live in the moment and enjoy, like, you know, extract joy from the mundane. And I saw a cool quote from, you know, Chris Williamson. He's a big podcaster. I listen to a lot of his stuff, and he was kind of pondering this a couple weeks ago about like, it's so ironic that the littlest things can make us distraught in our lives, but the threshold to feel real joy in our lives now is so high. You know what I mean? Like some people, it's like, oh, like, you know, they graduate from like medical school and like they experience joy for like a day, and like, but they've been working for it till it's like 8 years. You know what I mean? And it takes these monumental achievements to like experience joy, or, you know, get your SEAL trident or whatever it is. But in the in-between moments, which is 99.9% of the moments, we don't experience any joy because like what we require such a grand event to unlock that. And what he was saying is like, you know, if we could learn to, you know, live in those mundane moments and extract joy, like you've basically, it's the ultimate unlock to happiness because, you know, again, 99% of it is mundane, right? So I'm trying to do better at that, and you know, I'm still at work, but like an example is I was connecting through Boise, the airport, and there was a guy playing piano like near the gate, and he was playing Elton John, Candle in the Wind, and my gate was like 10 more gates down, and I was a little late, not like super late, but I was like, you know what? And it was a beautiful, like the way he was playing in his voice, I was like, wow, that's beautiful. So I actually sat down. I was like, I'm gonna sit here for 5 minutes, and I'm putting my phone away. I'm just gonna enjoy this moment right here. And silly, not a big deal, but that quote was sticking with me. Okay, this is one of those moments. Let's have some joy in this mundane moment of just the guy playing the piano, right? So I think that would be my lesson. I would, you know, grab that 22-year-old and I'd say, all right, you do you know, you try to be a savage in all these other ways, but hey, it's okay to step off the firing line every now and then and you know, admire your handiwork and live and maybe don't hold on so tight. You know what I mean?
That's so good.
So
I have like a really quick story kind of going off of what you just talked about, joy. So we're like told to take a Sabbath, right? It's like spelled out in scripture a lot. And I know you enough to know you probably struggle with that.
Big time.
To take actual time off.
I've never taken the Sabbath.
Okay, you need to start
other than going to church. Then I go straight to the gym. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, I got to organize.
Well, Sabbath can still be working out. It's like what is not technical like work, as in like, I don't know. Sabbaths can look different for everyone. I like define a Sabbath as something that like allows me just to like relax, enjoy God's presence, do things that like I love to do, kind of with God in mind. So like sometimes it is going to the gym for me, but the other day I was driving up to meet my friend Hannah at this like different town in Montana. Everything that's like 3 hours away is close to us. We're like, oh, I'm just gonna take a little trip up there. Before I left, I was getting my hair done in this little town called Red Lodge. And this is like my Sabbath activity, getting my hair done, like something relaxing for me. And so like I try to like listen to worship and stuff on the way up. So I'm like still, you know, thinking about God. But after I got my hair done, this is what made me think of it. It was your Elton John story, piano guy. There was like a 5-string band of bluegrass, like older men, playing like outside downtown Red Lodge. No one was around. I did the same thing you did. I sat down and just like listened. And this one guy looks at me in my eyes after they got done with one song and he goes, "You can play music, can't you? I bet you can sing."
He joined in.
And I was like, and then before my mind could compute what he had said and maybe like thinking like, you know, like I'm just gonna tell him no. I was like, yeah. I was like, take it. So anyways, they're like, well, what do you know bluegrass wise? And I'm like, well, I'm from North Carolina, so I should know more. But like, how about the Oh Brother Where Art Thou soundtrack? Like, what songs do you know? Because that's like one of my favorite movies. So we ended up playing like 4 or 5 songs. We gathered a good crowd. I had so much joy. Like I actually was tearing up because it was just so much fun, spontaneous. Not a single person knew me. And like this cute downtown Montana, like Hallmark movie kind of feel in town. We had like 30, 40 people just like stopped to listen to us. And it was like a movie moment. But on the way after that, I left on the way to Hannah's place. It was a dad and his daughter, probably 7 or 8. She was young, on horseback, moving cows across the road. And like, I wasn't annoyed. I wasn't like, oh, hurry up. I just sat there and watched them work together and like her learning. It was like the sweetest moment to witness.
So cool.
So much joy. If you stop, like you're saying, and like enjoy the little things that are in your day. And you're not like in a rush checking your emails on the phone. You're not distracted on social media. I don't know. Something about taking a Sabbath makes you do that. So I'm like, you should do that. Or try.
I'm working on it.
Try to do a Sabbath.
I like to get organized on Sunday. So like maybe that is a Sabbath for me, you know, like getting just so that all right, I'm ready to take on the week. But I think, you know, maybe I overdo it a little bit, but yeah. I
feel like you don't know how to turn off your business brain, which is why you're successful. But maybe
blessing and a curse, I guess.
That's right. One more thing before we go, I wanted to hear a little bit more about your Veterans Day campaign and what you guys have done in the past, what you hope to do this year.
Yeah, so we're really excited for this year. You know, we've always tried to leverage our platform to do good and to give back, and we've been very fortunate to have built a platform that's, you know, pretty significant now. You know, in the early days, we would try to donate to charity. You know, there were a lot less decimal places on the checks we were giving back then than there were now, but from day one we always thought that was important for us. It has to be more than just apparel. And for the last few years, we've always tried to do something around Veterans Day to support the veteran community. And you know, last year I came up with a pretty cool idea that, you know, about a concept of, hey, what if we paid off a bunch of veteran medical bills around Veterans Day? And I linked up with an organization called Forgive Co. that helps facilitate the debt purchase. So we essentially send them the money, and then they're able to go to the debt collectors and like say, yeah, we're paying all of those bills off on our behalf. So we were able to figure out there's a way to classify it to just veterans who have outstanding medical bills, because medical bills were important for me because it's like, okay, no one deliberately incurs like medical debt. Like if you get in a car accident going to work because someone ran a red light and now like you have a $50,000 like hospital bill, like that's not your fault. It's not because you were financially irresponsible. That's right. And that's just a bad break in life, and like those are the people that I wanted to help. So that was kind of the spirit behind the campaign last year. So we kind of had a wild idea, like, hey, let's try to, the goal we set was to pay off $5 million in veteran medical bills, and so we pledged a bunch, you know, all of our sales for a 4-day period ending on Veterans Day to like try to reach that amount. Well, it got a lot of momentum. We had a lot of people talking about it. I was able to go on Fox News, and it's just got a ton of momentum, and people were so enthusiastic about supporting the cause that we ended up actually paying off $11 million in medical bills. So it ended up being 5,800 veterans were debt-free by Christmas, which, you know, you can imagine, especially around the holidays, there's a lot of financial pressure for a lot of families. And you know, when someone has their stuff going to collections, like their credit score immediately tanks. They're getting phone calls and letters, scary letters from all these people. A lot of them will start getting their wages garnished. So like if they were living paycheck to paycheck and all of a sudden 20% of their paycheck is getting garnished, like that actually can be a big problem for a lot of families. Like that's, you know what I mean? Now you got to get a second job and this and that. And so I was able to call a lot of these individuals, and it really humanized it for me, because initially it was just an idea, but like then when you call like a woman to notify her that we've paid her bill, and like you realize she's a single mother of 2 and got T-bone driving to work, and then had to relearn basic skills to like walk and stuff, and so like her therapy wasn't covered, and then like had to get a second job, and both wages are getting garnished, and she's like trying to, you know, raise 2 kids by herself. Like these are the stories, and then, you know, so when you're able to tell that person, hey, your bill's been paid, and there's a silence on the phone, and then you hear a woman crying before she's even able to talk, that's pretty moving stuff, right? And that's when it really like hit me like a sledgehammer to the heart. I was like, oh shit, this was, well, now I'm like, I'm emotionally invested in this now, because like now it's almost that protector instinct like kicks in, because I got to do more, you know what I mean? So it was a huge success. There was another gentleman, he was a Marine, and had been partially paralyzed. He had 3 children, and his bill was $183,000.
Wow.
And I got to text him on the Marine Corps' birthday, which is November 10th of last year, letting him know, hey, your bill's gone, dude, we got you. And all kinds of other like examples like that were just very moving. So unfortunately, when it ended, I realized like we had just scraped the surface, because we were getting people DMing us like, hey, like I have this situation, I'm $60,000 in debt, like can you help us? But like, you know, we had to do it through ForgiveCo, and it's like, obviously I still have to run a business that like isn't in the red, so I can't just, I'm just gonna pay off everyone's medical bills now. But that really affected me, because I realized, hey, we need to do more. So I reached out to Black Rifle Coffee. I was going on Evan's podcast, and I said, once the cameras were off, I said, hey man, like I'm going to give you the 1-minute elevator pitch on this. But I basically said, hey, you should join us on this next year, because I've seen how much you guys have given back. And like, if we combine forces on this, we can do so much more. And it was an immediate yes. So this year, Black Rifle Coffee and Born Primitive, we're going to join forces, and for 5 days, so from November 7th through the 11th, we're going to pledge 100% of profits on both websites for that 5-day sprint to try to pay off up to $25 million in veteran medical bills. So we'll split it 50-50, you know, we'll do 12.5 each if we reach the goal. And we've actually already done 5 million. So we quietly paid off 5 million in July, because I wanted there to be some recipients that we could tell their stories and use it to like really humanize the campaign. Because once you kind of get the human element, it makes it so much different. And I thought that would be powerful to people to know like what it's actually going towards. So there was a woman on this first batch, and ForgiveCo called me, and they're like, hey, you're not going to believe this. There's a lady on the list. Her bill is $341,000. She's a Gold Star spouse. Her husband was in the Army, and he was killed. He was an infantry guy killed in the turret by a roadside bomb in Iraq. She was also an Army veteran herself, and they have 2 kids. And she ended up getting in a horrific car accident in Colorado after a ski trip, and got airlifted and had like 18 plates put in her face, and was in the hospital for a couple weeks. Was obviously really banged up, and her bill, bill's $341,000. Well, she can't pay that, so she's had this like massive burden, this storm cloud in the horizon that she just can't run away from. So she got the letter saying like, hey, it's born due to this random act of kindness from Born Primitive and Black Rifle Coffee, like that bill is now zero. Here's your official letter. You know what I mean? So wow. We flew out, Matt Best and I flew out to Denver and to hand deliver her that letter. Mm-hmm. So we got to like give her the news, and obviously it was a super emotional moment. For her, it was like obviously life changing, but like it's such an empowering feeling to like say, wow, like all the work that we've put in over the years and all the lonely moments and the late nights and the early mornings have like all led to this opportunity to leverage a platform to do some real good in a totally apolitical way. You know what I mean? Like we don't screen anyone. It's totally random. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's probably a lot of people that, we're helping change their life that probably have way different beliefs than me. But it's like, it goes back to the idea of like, we're all Americans and we are all on the same team. Wow. And so like I'm fired up. Like I hope we can hit the goal. I think we will get a lot of momentum behind it this year, and I hope it leads to something even bigger. I'm going up to DC in a couple of weeks to meet with the VA because I want to maybe provide them with these case studies. Because like if we hit 25 million this year, like we will be able to give them probably 25,000 veterans of case studies of like debt we've forgiven, you know what I mean, and say, hey, can you use this to maybe improve the VA and figure out some of those areas where the VA wasn't sufficient, you know what I mean, so that these people aren't having this happen, you know what I mean, and it won't all be VA related, because but there's probably a lot of examples where like maybe the VA just wasn't where it needed to be. And then these people can't appeal the claim, and before they know it, it's to collections, and you know what I mean. They have no means to fight it, and there you go. You know what I mean. So rather than just put a Band-Aid on the problem, I want to get to the root of the problem. That's right. So that's why I'm going up to DC. I'm going to meet with a bunch of senators and congressmen too, because I want to get them fired up about it, and then actually meet with the VA. And it won't be in a way to shame them at all. I mean, it's a very complex thing they have to run. Like I acknowledge that, but if I can say, hey, we have this really perfect data set that you guys can study, and we can pull out some really specific examples where, hey, you guys should have covered this and you didn't. Like, okay, let's identify that point of failure, so moving forward these people aren't blindsided with these bills that they thought were going to be covered. You know what I mean? So that's the long game. You know what I mean? And there's the wild idea that, hey, in a 4 or 5 year period, is there a scenario where 2 civilian veteran-owned companies could pay off 100% of the outstanding medical debt? You know what I mean? I think it's almost $1 billion. Wow. But crazier things have happened. You know what I mean? If this thing gets momentum and it turns into a little beast, like who knows? So I mean, obviously, I'm not going to throw that as a promise yet, but we're going to keep it going after this year. That's for sure. But this is phase 2, so we'll see how it goes, and we hope people will come out, shop the cause, and it really does go a long way. And I've said multiple times, like, we're simply facilitating it. Like, we're not I'm not actually doing the deed. I'm just facilitating the transaction, and it's because of the customers that come out and do it that make it possible, right? So like every person matters in this, and hopefully that kind of fires people up to maybe be part of it this year.
That's amazing. I can't wait to see what you guys do this year.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
I remember the meeting with Evan. I remember that podcast.
Oh, that's right, because you were there. Yeah, that's right.
Because it was Western Hunt.
Yeah, that was Western Hunt. Yeah, you're right. Yep. Yeah.
I remember that. I remember you, like, it was a very quick thing, and he said, yeah, we're on board. It was like right away.
Right, yeah.
It was very quick. That was amazing. Seeing you like, be like, I'm going to just say it. Yeah. And tell him my idea, and then seeing him be like, yeah, this is important, let's do it. That was cool.
Yeah, and they've done such a good job of giving back that I figured it would be something they would be interested in, because I've seen like them cut really big checks to really good causes. So I figured that's like the one organization I would want to align with on something like this. Especially, I wanted it to be a brand that was still true to like similar values as us, but the fact that we're both veteran owned, I thought that was kind of full circle. Like, okay, I hate the idea of the government solving our problems. Like, hey, let's come together, and like, we're in the military, we're wired to work together as a team. Like, that's the ultimate kind of skill that we're taught. And so it's like, it's right in line with that thought process of, okay, let's work together like we used to back in the, in the previous life to solve our problems. And that's what we came up with. So
amazing. Well, thank you so much for your wisdom, your expertise, sharing like a little bit of your life story and heart. And yeah, you guys can find Born Primitive at bornprimitive.com. And definitely shop from November 5th through the 11th. 7th through the 11th. 7th through the 11th.
If you want to go on the 5th, you can, but yeah, wait till the 7th.
Wait till the 7th.
Or do both.
Oh, it's a 5 days. That's where November 5th.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
To help them pay off some veteran medical bill debt. And that is awesome. Thank you so much, Bear.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.